good morning and welcome back to the workshop. As you may know, if you're a long-time viewer of this channel, I like to kind of theme my workshop around 1950s, 1960s technology. And it occurs to me that it's been some time since we've had a look around to see what equipment I've been using, what tools I've got, and what projects I have completed and which ones are upcoming. So I thought I'd do a quick whistle-stop tour around here to give you an idea of where I'm working and what I'm working with. So let's get to it. As you may no doubt expect, the pride of place in the workshop is definitely this Myford lathe. This is an ML7, and I have done a couple of videos about this particular lathe. One that was talking about why you shouldn't buy one has done particularly well on YouTube, but hopefully if anyone who's actually watched that video will understand, actually I do end up recommending it mostly because of the ubiquity of parts and tooling for it, spare parts and so on, as well as how many projects that the average machinist will fit within the context of an ML7. The only two things that I think that I'm missing out of this ML7 that would be great to have is a power crossfeed and a tri-lever attachment here instead of having to change the belts. And those are really the only two things that I think could be improved on this machine. Other than that, I'm incredibly happy with it. Behind, as you can see, I have the majority of my tooling. So my collets, I have a almost complete selection of the Myford collets, which you've seen in my videos, and a couple of soft centers for future use. I bought myself a new live center. This is my little steam engine. I did a series on building this. Unfortunately, at some point, I'd shut off the dehumidifier in the workshop and it got a nice coating of rust. So this all needs to come apart, be de-rusted and eventually painted. But I think realistically, I'm moving on to bigger and better things. So at the moment, it's just here as a bit of a sentimental thing. I have a couple of these red angle poise lamps. This one is on the wrong size base, so I do need to sort out a collar for that because it's split, or make a new one into it completely. Over here in the background, you can see I've got a couple of graver tools. I have been practicing my art for engraving, much like click spring. I thought it would be a really cool thing to pursue on some of my tools when I'm making them, have a bit of engraving on them. I thought that'd just be nice and fun. So I haven't taken too much practice with the actual tools, just doing lots of drawing practice at the moment. This is one of my unfinished projects from the intervening period of stopping videos. This is a 260 2.5 inch gauge live steam locomotive. This is a kit from Model Engineer's Laser, as are the frames, and the other parts are machined. So this is in progress. It's a rolling chassis. There's a cute little axle pump in there. There's eccentric sheaves in there. So this is something to follow up in due course. Well, here's another area that doesn't get a huge amount of view time, except that quite close-in shot on the mill from time to time. Here is my venerable Centec 2B milling machine. This is quite an old beast and it takes up a lot of floor space. I think you could probably have a Bridgeport in a similar kind of space and it would be a much more capable machine, but frankly, I'm just building model engines and bits and pieces. I don't need a huge production fabrication workshop, so this works fine for me, really. I have done a few small things to it, most notably the riser block and the head being fitted. It originally came with a standard overarm. It was a horizontal only machine initially, and then that would have allowed you to cut the tops of surfaces with various milling cutters. What I have done as a result of that is here there's a quick release handle for the half nut, and there was a modified version which had a long lever out here, and the problem there was that because this catch doesn't have any positive locating, the vibrations of cutting would cause that to jump out occasionally, and then the half screw would disengage, and then the hand wheels here wouldn't move the table. I'd lose my spot, so it was a bit of a pain. And the reason for that, of course, is in horizontal mode you want to be able to quick traverse the table back to its starting position. So this big spindle here did have a big capstan wheel, but I've taken that off because I don't use it. I think you can actually take out this whole arbor here, but I haven't found a way to do it easily. Maybe when I disassemble the whole thing to finally repaint it at some point in the distant future, I will take this one out and put a nice decorative cap on the end. But for now, that's the machine. It is a 3-phase machine. When I first got it, I needed to service the motor, and I did that, replaced all the bearings in it because they sounded pretty crunchy, and that's gone quite well, and that's down behind the machine there. But it's linked to a 3-phase control just out of camera to the side here, with forward and reverse and the various speeds. So I do use the gearbox a lot. I tend to run this at 100% on the wall and use the gearbox as the Lord intended. But sometimes it's nice to be able to just knock down the speed a little bit when you're going from drilling to tapping, for example. Got a nice clock there, courtesy of my father, who repaired it, which is quite handy because I never know what the time is. And again, another point of interest down there, you can see there is a relatively large locomotive. I bought this one as a restoration project. It is a 484 tank locomotive and 2.5-inch gauge. It's very dirty, as you can see, and it's missing a boiler. The boiler is with John Baguli to repair, because it was basically almost finished. A couple of bits needed to be done on it. Didn't want at the last minute to learn boiler smithing and ruin the boiler, so he's just finishing that off for me. And then this, in theory, should be good to go. It definitely needs a good clean up, and I'll do a full deep clean and a nuts and bolts restoration on it in due course. But that's what this is. And indeed, this whole cabinet here is nice and new, as opposed to that old horrible metal thing I had before. One day, I promise, I'll get this petrol blowtorch working. If you're into vintage tools, hopefully this will be an interesting segment for you and a good teaser for what's coming up soon. This is an Adept No. 2 motorized shaper. Obviously, it's tiny in terms of its footprint. It has a 6-inch stroke by a 5-inch crossfeed, I think. And so it's, in terms of footprint, it's very small. If you think of a 7-inch or an 8-inch shaper, they will be the size of this from the floor down, with a huge ram and so on. So this is not a heavy duty machine, but it should be really good for slotting and for getting nice surfaces on parts. We'll have to see, obviously. There's a lot to do on here. It has never been cleaned, as far as I'm aware. It's never been apart. There's rust on it and so on, so it will need a full nuts and bolts restoration on it. And in addition to that, there are a few modifications that I'm planning for. Mr. Factotum's Workshop is a fantastic YouTube channel, and he has done a similar restoration on one of these, and he has had indicators, like markings, sorry, on the top slide, because there currently aren't any. That would be quite handy. But also a bar at the bottom here to be able to set the table level with reference to the cross slide here. In addition, I think with reference to Rustinox and Michelle, he's got some great information about feeds and speeds for different materials. That might be slightly different for a machine of this size compared to his, which is a bit of a monster. But at the moment, this motor runs, I've seen it all working, but this motor will have I think it's like a 2 to 7 or 2 to 6 relationship here. So this actually runs about 100 strokes per minute, which I think the general gist is that's fine, but slower would be better. And so what I may do is introduce a counter shaft, because I would like to mount this motor below. Though I know that Mr. Factotum has done multiple pulley sizes on the motor shaft, and then allowed the motor to shift side to side, which has given different speeds that way as well, a bit like a gearbox. So we'll have to see exactly how this pans out, but I'm really excited about this. I've wanted one of these for ages, absolutely ages. I had a number 1 hand shaper about 2 or 3 years ago, and I restored that. I did a cosmetic restoration on that, and it was fine, but it wasn't all that useful, whereas I think this will actually be doing some really good work in the workshop. This rather forlorn bit of parts is the Myford Boy traction engine, which I will get around to shortly. In these boxes is the Barrett Steam Models kit for a locomotive, which I bought and have been paying for but haven't started yet. Under the lathe is my Propane Torch. I still haven't really invented too much in the way of hard soldering and boiler smithing, but that's definitely close by on the cards. A lot of the next projects I need will require that, so it's a skill I'm looking to cultivate, and I'm happy that I've got some of the equipment required here. I did also sort myself out a chair. This is a Tansad 1950s kind of industrial machinist chair. I'm really happy with it. It does unfortunately have a major problem in that the thread on the seat, which we know it rotates and the seat goes up and down, has completely stripped almost entirely the way through on a lot of it. So you can't actually adjust the seat height, which is annoying. So I'm going to either have to put a collar in there, or I'm going to have to remachine the main thread on the post in the middle of that. But that'll be a nice big Acme thread, you know, about 2 foot long or something. So that could be a fun little project for us to review in due course. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little look around the workshop. Certainly if I have friends over and they express an interest, then that's the kind of conversation we have. So hopefully that was enjoyable for you. And it's a nice look into the machinery that I've got and the projects that I've either worked on or I'm going to be working on over the coming months. There's not all the projects, there's definitely stuff that's coming in sideways, like the universal pillar tool and the Myford Boy traction engine. At the moment though, I'm really happy. This is absolutely my happy place, and I'm very thankful I could invite you in here to have a little bit of a chat about it. Thanks very much.